Hello, Nashlets, and welcome to Noshing with Nashies. Today we are going to head to the Caribbean and do some Jamaican jerk pulled pork. And I thought I would give us a little history here. I've got it up on my other phone because it's a lot of information. I thought I'd give us some history on Jamaican jerk seasoning. I'll put chapters down at the bottom there so you can skip this if you want to and just head to the recipe. But this is really interesting. I will also link the articles. One of them is from the Smithsonian in the description there if you're interested in learning about the history of Jamaican jerk seasoning. So happy Black History Month. Let's take a little trip here to Jamaica and learn a tiny bit about Jamaican jerk seasoning. Jerk is one of the enduring legacies of the fusion of African and Taino cultures in Jamaica. The Taino and Arawak people were members of the Caribbean's indigenous population. They were the first to call the island Ximaica, meaning land of wood and water, and first came into contact with the Europeans when Columbus arrived in 1494. Spanish colonialists formally arrived 15 years later, but their settlement was small and relatively underfunded compared to other Caribbean colonies. The Spanish did, however, bring enslaved labor to the island, which served mostly as a trading post. War between England and Spain reached the shores of Jamaica in the middle of the 17th century, leading to a British invasion, and the Spanish abandoned the island for their more established settlement in Cuba. Those who had been enslaved fled to the island's mountains and became known as the Maroons, derived from the Spanish word cimarrones, meaning mountaineers. But by the time the Maroons encountered the island's original inhabitants, who had also sheltered in the difficult-to-traverse ranges, 90% of the Taino population had become extinct. The British, meanwhile, rapidly expanded their presence on Jamaica, shipping enslaved labor from Africa that would become the engine of the booming sugar industry. Over the years, the Maroons would grow in population as enslaved people would escape the plantations for the mountains. Archaeological evidence shows that Maroons who disdained enslavement and claimed freedom in the island's mountainous interior settled among the indigenous people who survived the trauma of discovery. That's an important line there, trauma of discovery, because the Native Americans went through that as well. They shared culinary traditions. Among those traditions was jerk. Jerk as a standalone term refers to the way in which meat is seasoned, smoked, and grilled, whereas a historical jerk seasoning recipe calls for bird peppers, pimento, and pepper elder. Pimento here is allspice berries, not the pimento we're thinking of. Modern recipes may include Scotch bonnet peppers, scallions, garlic, ginger, pimento, thyme, and cinnamon. Like barbecue from the American South, jerk today is a remnant from the era of slavery, when Maroons would transform tough cuts of meat into tender, delicious dishes. According to Gary L. Ferguson, an acclaimed chef and restaurateur who participated in the inaugural edition of the James Beard Foundation's Savoring Jamaica celebration, escapees traditionally hunted wild boar, seasoned the meat with pimento, allspice berries, salt, and bird peppers, a species of chilies in the same family as cayenne, wrapped it in pepper elder leaves, and finally cooked it in an underground smokeless pit, roasted over dying embers. So there's something that's really cool. It's kind of shared with Polynesian culture and Hawaiian culture. You know, it's amazing how food travels. The smokeless pit's significance stems from the fact that Maroons, who sought refuge in Cockpit County, the mountainous range surrounding the plantations where they'd previously been enslaved, had to sustain themselves without revealing their locations. If they cooked over an open fire, the smoke would betray them. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that there, but you can see that the history of jerk seasoning goes way back. It was a combination of two different cultures that had been displaced from where they belonged, and they came together to survive together. And obviously, as that unfortunate slave trade was happening, that was shared all around the world as people were brought into those areas and those cultures. So what we see today comes from great history of people's survival and that wonderful human spirit that just never gives up. All right, Nashlets, let's head into my kitchen and make one of Papa Nashie's favorite dishes, which is Jamaican jerk pulled pork. We're going to do it in the crock pot. All right, see you in a minute. Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Noshing with Nashies. We're going to be making Jamaican jerk pulled pork sliders. You'll need your crock pot for this. You'll also need a boneless pork butt or pork roast, some King's Hawaiian rolls, some Caribbean jerk seasoning, whichever kind you like, some pineapple. We're going to have some pepper jack cheese, I've got some Vegeta, whichever you say it. And then we've got a coleslaw mix here. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to make that. I'm going to be inspired by the way my roast smells in the morning. So you'll get to see that later on. All right, let's go ahead and get this pork butt into the crock pot. All right, I've got my pork shoulder in my crock pot here. I've got the fat side up. We like to do the fat side up. That way, as it cooks and that renders away, it kind of, goes over the meat and marinates it. And the way that I do the water is just kind of almost to the top there. And now we're going to come in with a 15.25 ounce can of pineapple with the juice. We want all of that in there. Then we are going to come in with some Vegeta. This is basically our stock, our broth. It's a veggie stock broth. I'm going to come in with about 3 teaspoons of this. It's very potent. Then we are going to come in with some Jamaican jerk seasoning. Let's see if that'll focus. There we go. Come in with some Jamaican jerk seasoning, and it's pretty powerful seasoning, so, I'm going to go with about 1.5 teaspoons, maybe 2 teaspoons, since we're cooking this in water, but we want to make sure to get plenty, because we can, again, season when we're going to pull this and add some barbecue sauce later on. And I'm also going to come in with this Caribbean jerk marinade with papaya juice. This is the Kroger brand. Shake it up before you use it. We're going to come in with about 1/2 of this bottle, and then we'll mix that together. There we go. And all we're going to do is set this to low for about 10 hours. I will check in with you guys in the morning when I wake up, and that's when I will be inspired to make our coleslaw. This is a perfect meal for what is a very rainy night here in Las Vegas, so have a good night, and Nashies will see you tomorrow when this is all beautifully cooked. And you can see here our pork has porked up beautifully. That fat on the top bastes that meat. Whenever you're cooking a large chunk of meat, always put that fat on the top because it keeps it nice and moist. I'm going to transfer this into a bowl in order to shred it, and we are going to go over and make some coleslaw and some barbecue sauce for this pulled pork Jamaican jerk slider. All right, for our coleslaw, what I have here is 1 can of pineapple that I have made sure to kind of shred a little bit because we want that to really work in with our coleslaw. I'm going to go grab our coleslaw mix. All right, I have added our coleslaw mix here, and I'm just going to come in with some pepper, however much you want. I usually do, 1 teaspoon or more. But the pineapple really adds to this. The sweet and the savory go so well with pork. I'm going to add in about 1 tablespoon or 2 of rice wine vinegar. I like just that little bit of bite. And then we are going to come in with about 1 teaspoon or so, 1/2 teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of celery salt. Like I said, I was just going to be inspired today when I smelled the pork this morning, and oh my goodness, did the house smell good. All right, then we are going to come in with some Duke's Real Mayonnaise. This is the best mayonnaise, I'm telling you. 1/2 cup to 1 cup, depending on how much of your coleslaw mix you have. I'm going to give it about 3 big blorps of mayo here. This is really one of those things that's just to taste. And I find the best way to mix this is by using a fork, just because it really separates out the cabbage and the carrots. I'll let you watch me do this in fast motion. All right, there we go. We have our coleslaw. It is a really simple recipe, but it is really good. I'm going to put this in the fridge and let it chill out for at least an hour. Another great addition, if you don't want to use pineapple, is mandarin oranges. The canned mandarin oranges, the fresh mandarin oranges, Also really fantastic. Naturally, if you don't care for fruit in your coleslaw, just don't put any in there and season it up however you want. Okay, I'm going to put this in the fridge and I'm going to take you over and we're going to heat up some barbecue sauce. This is the barbecue sauce that I'm going to be using. This is Stubbs' Sticky Sweet Legendary Barbecue Sauce, and I'm going to include his story in the description as well, because it's really interesting. He's a man that never gave up on his dream. It is owned by McCormick now, but it is a beautifully wonderful sauce, and we're just going to take this, heat it up, and zhuzh it up a bit for this Jamaican jerk. All I'm doing for this barbecue sauce is taking 2 cups of it, putting it on my stove on medium heat. I have 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, roasted garlic powder, and I have 1 teaspoon of that Jamaican jerk seasoning, and we're just going to cook it until it's a little bit bubbly, and then we're going to put it into our pulled pork. Alright, I've transferred our hot pork into this bowl over here, and we are just going to pull it. You can see with 2 forks, it is super tender. You've got that steam coming off. It is just, oh yeah. And just shred it up. Because we want it nice and separated so that the sauce gets up in there. And I'm going to pour about 1 cup of the sauce in here and reserve the 2nd cup to the side because Papa Nashies does in fact like to put extra on top afterwards. And so you can dip your sliders in it. But 2 forks works out perfect. They also make tools for shredding. There's all sorts of different things online for accessibility if you can't do this yourself. So you can see that beautiful pork there. All right, let me grab my barbecue sauce. And we're just going to come in with a couple of spoons of it and mix it right on in. Oh, this smells amazing. Like so. I'm just going to mix this in. I've got my oven behind me preheating to 350 degrees, and we're going to cut those sweet Hawaiian rolls in half, lining one side of them with some pepper jack cheese. You can omit the cheese if you don't want any, but we're just going to bake them for about 10 minutes or so until that cheese is melted and the other side is nice and golden brown. I'll see you in a minute. And here we've got our bread all separated up. I've got the cheese on the bottom there, and there's the top. Gonna stick it in a 350 degree oven for about 10 minutes until the cheese is melted. The tops are toasty brown, and then we are going to assemble these beauties. Cheese is bubbly. We are nice and toasted, so I am going to come in and deck out our sliders here. This is 4 of them. This is going to be my serving because Papa Nashies and Mr. Nashies are at work still. So we're just going to take some of this, however much pork you want. And I do recommend investing in some butcher paper. It's great to have around for barbecue and dishes like this. Then I'm going to come in with just a little bit of my barbecue sauce that I zhuzhed up. And just top that off. It's still nice and warm. Oh, yeah. Oh, that smells good. That Jamaican jerk seasoning is just amazing. And then our coleslaw has been marinating in the refrigerator. And now we can come in and top this off with just a little bit of coleslaw. And of course you can serve this on the side if you don't like it on your sandwich. That's perfectly fine. I like coleslaw on my pork. I also like coleslaw on hot dogs. I believe it's Cuban, if I'm not mistaken. And then we are just going to take this, and we have our beautiful sliders. All right, I'll come back in just a minute for the finale here. And there we have it, folks, our beautiful Jamaican jerk pulled pork sliders. They are such a wonderful treat. Thank you so much for joining me for today's edition of Noshing with Nashies. And remember, if you come to a fork in the road, pick it up and have a nosh with Nashies. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!